Hello and welcome, Exiles, to my guide on pushing to the high tier 16 maps as fast as possible on a Leaguestart. I have tested this strategy about 4 to 5 times now, doing Eater and exarch runs, and each time it has worked out quite well for me. For example, previously, in my memory, I have done Eater and exarch in about 15 to, I want to say, 25 hours of gameplay after reaching the T1 maps of finishing the campaign. Now with this strategy that I've been trying, I've been efficiently doing it in about 4 to 5 hours consistently among the past 5 runs I've done over the past week and a half roughly. And the strategy is pretty simple. I am gunning it straight this direction, going for the extra map sustain here, and then straight up to Wandering Path. The idea is pretty simple. We want to get to Wandering Path. We want to get as much of these small nodes that give us chance to drop a higher tier map. As you see it, I have over here, and I unspec this node because around this time when I get here-ish, I also do a Maven, my first Maven thing, which gives you a couple respec points. You don't need an unmaking orb. You unspec that point, and then we're going around to the other small nodes. So that gives us all the chance to drop a higher tier map, as well as I am going to start stacking 4% chance for one monster in your map to contain a connected map. This is the scenario where we're trying to essentially shoot straight up in tiers. I've gotten most of the time around 40 to 55 map completion, and by the time I have that much map completion, I have on my tree, you'll see if I spec these nodes out, I get this number over here on the right side all the way up to 100% chance for a monster in the map to drop an additional connected map. Now, depending on what you want to do later in League, like say you want to be doing Betrayal later, say you want to do Breach later, say you want to do Bestiary or Ritual stuff later, you can maybe branch these nodes more specifically tailored towards where you want to end up. But the idea is you want to get to exactly 100% chance for a monster in your map to drop a connected map. This does basically two things. It gives you the chance, if you full clear the map, you're going to drop a connected map. And if you're on a T14, that is either going to be another T14, a T15, or a T13 as you're trying to progress. One, it stops you from having a cataclysmic, basically, setback in map tiers. For example, if you're running a T14, you're guaranteed to at least get a T13 out of it if you are full clearing the map. Whereas if you don't have this to 100%, you're going to have a scenario where you full clear your map and you don't get any map out of it, and then you go down to whatever the last map it is you had. Maybe it goes to a T12 or a T11. It could be a huge setback, stuff like that. So this helps prevent that, as well as there's a high likelihood it will drop you a map of a higher tier, allowing you to kind of catapult your way up the tiers of map. So this is the idea. This is the atlas you're sort of shooting for. 46 completion, 48 completion, 50 completion, whatever it is, you're shooting for the chance to drop a higher tier map and getting these small nodes here. The hard part about map sustain in early League is you don't have void stones. Eater, exarch, they give you by themselves, each void stone, 25% chance to drop a map of a higher tier. Getting just the Eater and exarch is a massive boost to your map sustain. And essentially, once you get more and more void stones, you don't need this much map sustain investment, and you can start branching away from Wandering Path. But initially, in the early League, when you don't have a lot of map atlas completion, this gets you there the fastest. Keep in mind, if you're pushing a T16 map fast, your character is going to be weak for that content unless you have a very strong character. So I wouldn't recommend it if you have a build that is a late bloomer or isn't super insanely strong on a Leaguestart. I would only recommend it if you have a fairly confident build, you're fairly confident in its ability to handle T16s on just absolutely weak gear. But this is how you push the maps fast. And then on top of that, the other key thing to keep in mind when you're doing this, and this is my philosophy of when I'm running these maps essentially, is I'm always going for running maps that give me progress, running maps that get me completion. I don't want to repeat maps as much as I can. I avoid that. So the key here is Kirik's shop. A lot of times you'll have those 4 T1 maps right out the gate. You dropped them as you were going up through the campaign. You got a freebie from Kirik. You run each of those. You get your first completion. Maybe you drop a T2 here, a T2 there. Maybe you get a T3. But maybe you don't get sustaining maps. And you're like, okay, I'm running out of maps. What do I do? All the chance orbs you've collected, all the fusings, you can turn those into chance orbs. Buy maps from Kirik. Specifically aim for maps that you have not completed and maps that give you a higher tier than you've completed previously. Along with your alchemies, these are going to be important for buying maps as well. And all you need to remember is, when you can, buy maps from him. Don't buy maps you've already completed. Only buy maps that say not completed. If you hover Alt over it, if you have the advanced item description in your UI set, you can hold Alt over it. It'll say incomplete or not complete or whatever it is. And simply put, once he runs out of maps that are not completed for you and you want to refresh his shop, save this for the last step of like, okay, I need more maps. Then look at doing a Keurig mission from him. So aim for Keurig maps you have not done. If you do a mission for him, if it's the correct magic, alch, or vald tier, it will give you completion as well. But the second you do this and you run this, and I look at his shop now, it has Arsenal or whatever. I might have messed that up. We'll see if it rotates the shop. I don't know if it bugs it out if you're like in the inventory menu with them when the map opens. Let's see if I did that correctly or not. It's still Arsenal. Okay, let me open another mission from him just to make it swap. But basically, when you open a mission for him, you go in there, it will swap. His thing might have already swapped. Let me check now. Okay, yeah, as you can see here, it added in this dig map that wasn't there before. But basically, the maps he gives you back is related to essentially the maps you've done recently. And I've done a lot of T16s, so I think it has a lot of like higher tier maps in here. But normally, as you're starting, it's going to start out giving you a bunch of like T1s to 5, maybe even T6. And then you run a bunch of maps and you try to reset his basically inventory, and he'll give you maps that are like T2 to T7 or T2 to T8, and it'll keep progressing up, basically mirroring what you've done recently along with some tiers above. Always try to get the highest tier map possible to keep progressing your Atlas completion upward as much as you can. So that's the simple strategy. You want to spec for Wandering Path straight away, get as much connected map completion as possible along with the chance to drop higher tier map. This is all your priority to get yourself the highest possible map sustain while pushing upwards in tier, even though you don't have a lot of Atlas completion and you don't have Void Stones giving you their additional bonus to map drops as well. That is the idea. I've been using it. It's worked effectively for me. I would only recommend this strategy, again, if you want to push for basically bossing early or high tier content. The value in pushing high tier maps early is you get to sell bases. You can even sell T16 maps. If you get to T16 maps early and you're just pumping and you're printing maps, those will sell back to other people who are trying to slingshot their progression higher early on in the game. Now, granted, this will drop off fairly quickly, but if it's in that first couple days, you are going to make quite a lot of money doing it. And not only that, when you're in T16 maps, the drops are better. Generally, the league mechanic is more rewarding at T14+. Usually, there's just more loot to be had. You can push altars. You can get a bunch of Chaos Orbs drops, all that sort of stuff, etc. What I'm probably going to do after I push to Exarch and Eater and I get those completed, I'm probably going to run over. I'm going to grab the pack size for Exarch, and I am just going to try to start getting Chaos from Exarch altars, getting Val Orbs, getting Sextants. All this juice you get from Exarch is fantastic currency early on. That's going to be my rough strategy. I might also convert and start working at maybe dropping some 86 Stygians. I'm not sure if that's really that good of an idea, but the main goal is, if you get to T16 early, you can get to some of those boss drops early, which are worth a lot more early on. Somebody that's going to say, hey, I want to buy a Legacy of Fury, which is a common drop for Maven. Early on, it's just very limited because people haven't gotten to that high of content yet. If you can push to the high tiers fast, you can get some Maven splinters, you can run Maven, you have a good chance to get yourself a very valuable item early on, when later on it will just tank in value because it is a very common drop. So that's the idea behind the strategy. Hopefully this helps you on a Leaguestart. I would say limit yourself to doing this unless, essentially, if that's the sort of thing you want to do. If you'd rather play, like if you just love doing essences or you love doing strong boxes or whatever content, expedition, heist, whatever it is, don't let me stop you from doing that. This is just how I would say is the most efficient way to get to T16 maps fast and basically fill out your Atlas completion with Void Stones and having that extra juice for map sustain early on in the league. I would also say I've been doing this, but I don't necessarily recommend it. I've been speccing Dance of Destruction. Essentially, this is trading my character's tankiness to make me kill monsters faster. It makes monsters take, basically, they have 25% life, which effectively is like a 33%. I think it's 33% more damage, roughly. I don't know, maybe I'm not doing the math right. But anyways, point is, it makes you less tanky, it makes you die more often, but if your character's tanky enough, you can handle that downside, along with the fact you're just killing the monsters faster because of it, and then you're progressing your Atlas faster. So you have to gauge whether or not that's worth it for you. Say you have an extremely fragile character, but you deal a hell of a lot of damage. Maybe you want to do something like Wellspring of Creation, so that way monsters deal less damage, but they have more life, but you're still one-shotting them anyways. Stuff like that. There's options, but that is the idea behind the Wandering Path Atlas, basically progression strategy. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Hopefully you guys are excited for the new league. Of course, there's possibilities they change the whole Atlas tree going into next league. We don't know. We'll see. If they do, I will probably make an updated video based on if it changes this strategy or not. As always, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Take care, Exiles, and peace out.